In this very special bonus chapter of the Fix Volume, I'm going to show you how to push Adobe Audition to climes unknown to get your audio clean, using that spectral editor and other techniques that may not be intuitive for the average Adobe Audition user. And if you're an Adobe Audition user and that's your primary tool for getting things clean, this chapter is for you. Let's roll. We're going to take some clips that we've looked at in other aspects of this education and just try to clean them up here in Audition. So these clips are, forgive me, they will sound oddly familiar to you, but we're going to clean them up and work with them as best we can in Adobe Audition exclusively. So here's our first clip.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out, some at their parents' urging, because they don't see the value of a high school diploma.
And if you were on the Sound Advice Tour, this will be familiar to you as well. There's two things basically we want to look at in here. There's these mic bumps,
because they don't,
and then there's the general noise.
Educators say more.
That's not bad, but it's definitely there. So we're going to double click, and that brings up the waveform view, which you can also get to in that waveform editor, in my case, by hitting 0. So this is the spectrogram, just like we see in other programs that use this. You've got high frequencies versus low, early versus late, and the brighter it is, the louder these particular frequencies are. So we can definitely see here.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out.
And there's that bump down there, and these are the overtones and lovely Andreas's voice. So the first thing that we want to do is ensure that our volume is at a good place that we can edit it at. So if I take this here, and you can look carefully, there's these two little bands here. I can select between waveform and the spectral view. In this case, if you look, this peak, which is actually the mic bumps themselves, goes all the way out to -2, even -1. So that's plenty of bandwidth for us. We don't need to do any gaining or anything like that. Then the next thing we want to do is just basic denoising. We want to select a part of the audio that is the noise that we want to get rid of. And that's pretty good. Let's take a listen to this. That's probably even better. In Audition, you teach Audition what the noise profile is from outside of the plugins that we want to use. You could do it from within, but if you do it from here, Effects, Noise Reduction Restoration, you can see Capture Noise Print is Shift P. And so we can do that here. It immediately captures it. Nothing's happened to the waveform. It's just basically learned that noise. And then from there, we can go select the noise reduction that we want. There's tons of noise options that you have, and they're sometimes difficult to figure out how to use. The ones that I suggest that you use for these kinds of noise reduction bits are either the hiss reduction process, if it's high frequency white type noise, or noise reduction process. Both of these are destructive, and I recommend them. If you're not familiar with what this looks like or what this is, how the noise reduction works in Audition, you've got the green line is your threshold, the red line is the low end of the noise, and then the noise floor itself and the highs, and the yellow, and then you have sort of an EQ boosting or cutting of the noise, denoise file. You can, of course, capture the noise print from within this, which you'll have to do if you change your fast Fourier transfer size. What in the world is fast Fourier? Well, let's go through all of this, and we'll start at the bottom. The little help bits are actually very accurate, determines how many individual frequency bands are analyzed, but that doesn't mean anything to us per se. But what it means, just in practical lay terms, is the fewer samples or fast Fourier size bits that you have, the more sharp and sometimes the more artifacts you'll get. So a 512 is going to be very, very sharp, very, very clean, but you're going to get those musical chirpies. Whereas when you go out to 16K like this, it'll be very smooth, very kind of wishy-washy with less artifacts, but you won't get the kind of noise reduction that you'll want. My general idea is to keep the noise print snapshots at 4,000 or so. Really don't mess around with that. Precision factor is how fast the denoise returns to back to denoising once something like dialogue crosses the threshold. It's in conjunction with how fast the spectral decay rate works. I like 1%, and the precision factor I'll mess with. Smoothing, I generally always leave out at 1024, and I always leave the transition width at 1 decibel. The higher you raise this, the less denoising you'll get. And then this is what we're very familiar with. How many decibels do you want to reduce the noise? And then this is sort of a mix between 100% reduction and the original signal. Kind of consider it mixing the dry signal with the wet. That's really the best way to look at that. So let's try some examples now that we've got a noise print that we like. I'm going to select all and hit the play button.
We'll just do the mic bump on this one.
Actually, I tell you what, let's just go from here because that's me jibber-jabbering again.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out, some at their parents' urging, because they don't see the value of.
Now, what you're seeing here is the noise print is not defined, and that's because I've changed some of these things. So we're going to capture the noise print again, just because it's fun to do, and it sounds okay. We'll go like this. It's very fast. We'll come back here, select all of it again.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out.
Notice the noise is removed.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out.
And it's doing very well. If you listen closely, you can hear some artifacture.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out.
Up in his sibilance, a little musical noise going on there. Let's change this to 512. It will ask me to make a new noise print, which I can do, and then go back and select again.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out, some at their parents'.
You even get more noise removal. Let's run the noise reduction way up here and see what we get.
Educators say more and more students are dropping out, some at their parents' urging.
That's really, really clean. In fact, if we say process via apply, look at what happens. The noise is completely removed. And this is a kind of noise denoising that's called fast Fourier transfer, FFT. You'll see here, FFT. Isotope also has this. Most programs that have denoising have this kind of work. It's very, very good for simple denoising, things where you just need to get rid of a general room, where you don't have any problems or anything like that. Very, very good. And in Audition, it's quite good as well. So now that we've got this handled, let's take a look at the bumps themselves. In Audition, it's really simple to zoom in and out of various views, not just time like this, which is obvious, but also in a couple of different ways. If I come over here to the side, if I click on the right, I have more logarithmic, more linear, and I love key commands. This, in this case, is Option Command up and down arrow. You can select whatever you want. So let's take a look at what this looks like. If I go up, that's as far up as I can go. And what it means, if you look over here, all of the base frequencies are maximized. So I got 8 hertz all the way up to 100 hertz, taking almost a third of the visual. And then everything from 20K to 10K mashed up at the top here. So if I really want to get down and dirty with something low frequency wise, I go that way. Conversely, if I go down, I get the opposite effect, something more linear, right? There's a lot more frequencies between this octave of 22 kilohertz and 2 kilohertz. I mean, well, 20,000 more hertz, or hertz. So you can expand that if you need to do something in the high frequency range. So up and down. Another thing that you can look at is the resolution. Increase spectral resolution, decrease it. And I'm going to use the key commands and watch what happens here. You can really kind of hone in what kind of ways you want to look at this. And I'm just going Shift Command up and down. Again, change your key commands to suit. And I'm going to start here and find a resolution that I like, probably something like this. So just to hone in the past, it was difficult for me to kind of get comfortable with this particular spectral view until I realized those keys were available. And then that makes editing in this much easier. In the Tools menu, it's slightly different than what you would have in some other programs. You certainly have the time key, where you can select anything in time. You certainly have the, rectangular selection. You've got lasso, no problem. You've got the brush, which is always at 50% opacity. You have to move over it a lot of times if you want it to select everything 100%. And then, of course, you have the auto heal brush tool. But there is no frequency tool. In other words, there's no way for you to be able to beam across a certain frequency like this without doing what I just did, which is dragging. So be advised of that. Also be advised that there is no way in Audition to be able to do a selection like this, go to the lasso tool and do something like hold down Option and unselect. So you have a limited way, a limited fashion in being able to select. In fact, if I go here and I want to alter my selection, I can by holding Option, and I can do all those things. I can also hold Shift and do all that. But if I want to then add more by going to a different tool, unfortunately, it deselects. So you're stuck to one tool. And in fact, even in the rectangular tool, I can only do one thing at a time. So hopefully they'll work that out. But in the meantime, for fixing bumps like this, it's shooting fish in a barrel. So I've got the lasso tool. Just like in Photoshop, I'm going to select the whole bump. That's definitely him. In Audition, you have something that you don't have in other programs, which is the ability to not just kill it 100% or in some kind of attenuation, but actually boost or just remove by absolute frequencies. And in this case, that's very, very useful for us.
Students are dropping out.
And I've got a little bit of a
Students are dropping out.
A little bit of a bump right here. So let's undo. And we'll select this bump that we missed here. Because we're still in the lasso tool, I haven't gone to some other crazy odd tool. I can just select. Definitely. We're going to turn it off. Go back to time.
Students are dropping out.
And there's a little bit of a hump here for those of you who have headphones on. So we're going to undo. Actually, we're going to redo that and then just tell it, do a new selection. And just select this whump that didn't quite get erased. There. That's nice. Cute.
Students are dropping out.
And that's all gone. Now let's try, let's see. This one should be nice and easy for us. Just zoom in a little bit more. And if you've been on the Sound Advice Tour, you've seen us do this with other programs, but we really wanted to show you how to do this in Audition, since Audition will certainly do it. That's pretty good. We'll turn it off. See how we did here. Time tool.
Parents urging. Parents urging.
Now there's a bunch of overtones up here. So let's undo and select those as well, without selecting his voice. Let's see how that did.
Their parents urging.
Cool. And we still have a little bit of a bump left in here, so we'll fix that up with the lasso tool once again. Just like in other programs, sometimes you have to silence more than once just because of the nature of how the math works.
Parents urging. Because parents urging. Because parents urging.
Cool. That's gone. You'll notice there's a black bar in here, and you can hear that like a gating.
Parents urging. Because.
And I'm going to show you how to fix that in the next chapter. But for now, we're just getting rid of bumps. This one's much more difficult because it's in the middle of his word. You can see it kind of coming up into here. So we're going to have to kind of cut around. Go to the lasso tool for now. We'll select this. We'll hold down Shift and select this, because his voice is definitely not down in there. We'll also kind of cream bit this. Great, we'll turn that down. And what happens now?
Value of a high school.
Well, that's really nice. Now we'll do it again just to make sure we get all of it. Still in there a little bit. That looks much better.
Value of a high school.
Now you still hear some of it ringing in. We might, if we were daring, go and try all of this here to silence this. We'll silence that. See what happens.
Value of a high school diploma. Which is
pretty good. So you can totally do all of these kinds of edits and get in the middle of this and start cutting away in Audition. Let me show you another example. Let's delve into a little more denoising. It's a little more draconian here.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released a statement claiming economic growth has stalled.
That's right. That's a lot of junk in there. So the process doesn't change. We'll do this. We're going to go to noise reduction, restoration, noise reduction process. We're going to capture the noise print, which is this right here. You can see it does a good job of silencing that at this setting, of course, minus 68 decibels. I hope so. But let's see what it does to the dialogue.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
And you can hear it just crunching away, all of that. Let's try a few different FFT sizes just so you can kind of hear the difference. Here is 1024, where it's going to require us to have a new noise print. We're going to select that. Try it.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
You can hear it's a little bit better. Let's go out to 4K. It's going to ask us to do the same thing again. Capture noise print. Select all.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released.
Right, it's different kind of artifacture, a little more digital sounding, but we also have a little less noise. But a little less noise reduction is what I mean. But this is a massive, raunchy setting. Yeah! Let's go back to 512. Let me show you something else about how this works, just so you can kind of get a feel for how all of these things work. We'll capture. So this is a spectral decay rate of 1%.
Vice President.
Let's run this up.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
Here I was doing all that stuff. That's because we really slowed down the rate or the gating at which Audition does its work. So if we bring it to 0,
Vice President for Economic.
It's uber fast, and somewhere in between.
Vice President for Economic.
Even more.
Vice President for Economic.
Even more.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District.
So that's a lot of gating. Let's try it now, 1%, and then let's change the precision factor. Let's run out to 32.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs
and then back to 1.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
Oops, sorry, that got changed. That shouldn't have changed. The 1.
Vice President for Economic.
Back to 32.
Vice President for.
That's a really unfortunate bug.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
And then let's put it down over here at 7 or so.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
All right, so I like it at spectral decay at 1%. That's where I like to have this. And then from here, you can kind of fool around. Let's try it at 28.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
Helps it a little, but 32.
Vice President for Economic.
Yeah, it's somewhere in here between 7 and 24 that I like to keep this, generally speaking, if I'm on a hard setting like this. Now, transition width, again, it's just going to, the more you make it come out here, the less reduction you're going to get.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
And if we bring it all the way to 0.
Vice President.
And it's even more draconian if we change the bit width of the fast Fourier transfer.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
And then if we run it out.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
So, you know, it depends on your settings. Also, let's run smoothing down so you can hear what that sounds like. Nice, right? Let's change this down.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
Here we go. We're going to go like this. Somewhere transition width to here.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
Good for effects, but not good for much else. So again, keeping transition width at 1% and smoothing at 1%, or 1 means it's basically just the hard, cold artifacture.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
You really hear it crunching away in there as we run it all the way out to 1K.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
And then, again, a massive setting. If I change noise reduction all the way to 0, you can see it changing up here in this window.
Vice President for...
0% means nothing. 100% means you're not getting any dry signal. It's just coming from here.
Vice President...
And now let's bring this down to a reasonable setting, like maybe 12 dB.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District.
And I'm not sure I like that either. Let's turn the precision factor up. And let's make this 1K. We're going to have to give it a new noise print. So if you want to save noise capture settings, you can do that. And so you don't have to keep coming back here if you want to change any of these settings. You can go this, you go, let's see, we'll capture it. And we can say save. Let's call it noise print, test noise print. We'll just save over this one. That's cool. Currently set noise print. What it also saves is the noise print capture settings. So if you want to change this, you also need to resave, which we can do, capture noise print. We can say save this test print noise CS in 4K. Now, if I want to bring up this one, I can do that. There's the 4K one. This is the 1K one. Let's check out what this sounds like in the 4K. Select all. And I don't have to keep going back and doing that to go between them now.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
Let's bring this down to 6 decibels.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released...
Let's see if we change the width a little bit.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th...
And let's slow it down just a little bit.
Vice President for Economic Monetary...
I'm listening specifically to those sibilants, which it's doing a little better with now.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
All right, let's apply. Now this is going to be temporarily non-destructive until such time as I actually hit save in the session, then it will burn it to the file.
Of the 12th District has...
So I've got a little artifacting in here, but it's not too bad. Let's go back and do another small pass. Noise reduction process, please. Excellent. Now let's try one at the 1K setting, which is this one here.
Of the 12th District.
A nice easy 6 dB setting, please. Select all.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released a statement.
We'll slow down the spectral decay.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released a statement claiming economic growth has stalled and there is a new risk.
Definitely helps. And we'll put that in. Now we've got lots of reduction, incredible amounts of reduction in noise, and we've got some artifacts.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District.
But if you put that under, ambiances and all those kinds of things,
Vice President for Economic Monetary,
you could make that work. Just in Audition, you're going to have to be extra special careful in not doing too much with the denoising because the FFT process is inherently creates artifacture. Let's try one more thing about this. I'm going to undo. I'm going to do 3 now, very small noise reduction processes. We're going to do it at 1024. I'm going to make sure we load that noise print, the 1K version. There's our noise print.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released a statement claiming economic growth has stalled and there is a new risk.
So let's see if we turn this off, is there any difference?
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
Definitely. So we'll apply this, and then we will look it up again. You can make this into a favorite as well if you'd like.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren.
We'll just do the 4K version of it now, always keeping it changing.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released a statement claiming economic growth has stalled.
We'll try this and apply that.
Vice President for Economic...
And we'll do one more very light setting. Oops, not sound remover. Noise reduction. We're going to pull up the 1K again. Very light. We're going to make this, actually, I can't pull up the 1K. That way I have to do a new noise print with this one. Capture noise print. Because it's a different FFT size.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District has released a statement claiming economic growth has stalled and there is a new risk of recession in the... Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli... Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th...
Let's try that.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs Oli Ren of the 12th District.
And that's pretty good. I mean, that's, again, all the noise gone.
Vice President for Economic Monetary Affairs.
Very few artifacts, certainly passable at the very minimum. Again, doing smaller passes. This is a really bad example, right? There's tons and tons of noise in this.
Vice President.
If you'd recorded this, I mean, look, you got basically the Milky Way galaxy in here.
Statement claiming.
You did a bad job recording.
Statement claiming economic growth has stalled.
But at least here in Audition, you can get this fixed. Let's try another example. Now here's a more egregious offender, bad audio from our beach scene.
I mean, where would you big tanks be without your healer? Squish! Your jelly in a tin can in 10 seconds flat, squashed by some monster or other. Is there a problem?
Do you want everyone?
There's a whole bunch of problems in here. Trucks and birds and all kinds of other issues, not to mention background noise like crazy. So let's find a setting that's nice for us here. We can really see what's going on. Probably pretty good.
I mean, where would you big tanks be without your healer? Squish! Your jelly in a tin can in 10 seconds flat, squashed by some monster or other. Is there a problem?
You can hear this truck that's going through here and down here, going crazy. You can see the lines banging through our track, especially on the right channel. So normally what we would do is do a denoise and then do our best to get rid of these birds here. I mean, they're kind of everywhere. And that's what we would do. But because Audition doesn't quite have all the tools that we would like in terms of cutting and being able to solve some of this, instead of fancy tools, we'll go back to some basics, which Audition is very good at, and that is finding a noise profile that we like and intercutting it using this Happy Lasso tool. What we want to do is copy from donor noise profile, in this case here. She's got a little bit of her voice in there, but that's okay. And then kind of paste around where all these birds are, so we're not invading her voice at all. Unfortunately, right now there's a bug where we can't use the time tool to select from the donor side. If I do this and copy, and then I go here and I want to paste this here and I hit paste, unfortunately it makes a dark region above and below, which we definitely don't want. Hopefully they will fix that soon. So instead we'll use the rectangle tool and we'll select frequencies that we know we want to use, but not all the full bandwidth part. We'll do this, we'll copy. And now that it's in the clipboard, we'll go take a look at some surgery that we want to do.
Monster or other.
Right here. So let's find out where she is. We'll use the lasso tool to find out where her voice is, which is probably around here. Maybe even here. Yep, and the bird is right there. Cool. So let's then cut around her voice, which I'm guessing is around like that. And then we're going to paste. See how we did here.
Some monster or other. Some monster or other. Some monster or other.
Pretty good. And then her voice is over here as well. Sorry, the bird voice. Bird voice. Paste. And then the paste didn't quite get there, so we'll do this. We'll get that truck as well. Paste.
Is there?
Now, of course, we're getting looping because our selection isn't that long.
Is there?
Which is sort of a drag. So we'll undo that. Let's see if we can find another part that we can use.
Monster or other. Is there monster or other?
In fact, we're getting it here as well. So let's see if we can find another part that we can use to copy. I'm going to go back to the rectangular tool. Give us a little more space. I don't need it to be full bandwidth, right? Because the birds aren't down here, but they are in this area. So we'll copy. I'm just going to kind of wholesale, well, I don't want to kill her voice, but I do want to kill this part here. Let's paste.
Other. Is there?
And then we're going to want to go down here. Let's use the lasso tool for a little more precision. Actually, I don't want to go down that far because I'll get a bunch of blank because there ain't nothing there in our selection. And then paste. Didn't get it. About paste. There we go.
Monster or other. Is there a problem?
And then we've got a little bit here that we don't like. Thank you.
Monster or other. Is there a problem? Monster or other. Is there a problem?
So that's we got rid of those birds there.
Bat squashed by some monster or other. Is there a problem?
And there's another birdie right there, little bastard.
Is there a problem? Is there a problem?
And it's right in the middle of her sibilant, isn't it?
Is there a problem?
Let's see what we can do about that. We might just luck out with the lasso tool. If we bring it down a bit.
Is there a problem?
A little bit less. Let's increase our selection just a little more.
Is there a problem? Is there a problem?
Right? Just, I don't want to get rid of it all the way because then you hear this weird happen in her sibilant. But.
Other? Is there a problem? Other? Is there a problem?
And that's really nice. Now, there's still 8 million parts of noise and junk in here, but at least these bird bits have been cut out. Let's see if there's another one in here we can deal with.
Some monster.
Right here. You can see this guy.
Some monster.
So let's find a noise platform or a noise profile rather that goes down here. Looks like around 400 hertz. And I think what we can do is go and use our old faithful here. I can't use the time tool to select, but I sure can use my E key. I will copy. I'll take US, thanks. And then we'll use the copy part and we'll come here and we'll take on our lasso tool. See if I can change the resolution to make this any better to look at. That's about it. Okay, we'll zoom in a little more. We'll paste. Let's see what happened here.
By some monster.
Okay, we'll get this part better. Hold shift. Paste that. And then, let's see here. Yeah, kind of harder to see.
Some monster.
That's the little bastard that we want to get. So we'll change the logarithmic view. Well, yeah, that's about it. That's all we're going to get. We're going to cut through her sibilant, which I don't like, but that the bird is louder than she is. There it is, and we'll paste.
Some monster other.
Now it's gone.
Some monster.
We have a little tag of it in here. Let's see if we can fix that just a little bit better. Paste, time.
Some monster other.
All right. So that's how you would go through and do some surgery in some bad places where we replaced bad stuff with noise profiles from other places, just using copy and paste, making sure not to use the time selection tool for full bandwidth selection, but even just as fulls, you can do a selection that's not quite all the way up here. If you go all the way up, you might have a problem, but just inside and all the way down will also work, just as long as it's not the whole bandwidth like we experienced with the auto heal tool and RF hits.
Some monster other. Is there a problem?
Much, much better than this.
By some monster other. Is there a problem?
Right? And then one last thing, now that we have all this noise in here, we should do a little denoise pass, which we can definitely use full bandwidth for this. And we will say noise reduction. Here's the process. We'll capture the print. We'll select the part that we want to look at, which is these guys here. And because this is the same noise as what we copied and pasted, we shouldn't have any trouble.
Squashed by some monster other. Is there a problem?
Doing a nice denoise.
Squashed by some monster other. Is there a problem?
In fact, let's go down to 512 and recapture.
Squashed by some monster other. Is there a problem? Squashed by some monster other. Is there a problem? Squashed by some monster other. Is there a problem? Squashed by some monster other. Is there a problem? Squashed by some monster.
Okay, there's that. And the last thing, of course, is the truck, which you hear banging around.
Flat, squashed by some monster other.
And let's zoom into the bass frequencies, mainly because most of this truck lives in these bass frequencies below 100 hertz. We'll use this, and I don't believe we will end up with anybody's dialogue. is. Starting up. In fact, I might even get, who's this? Yeah, that's definitely our man Robbie. So we're just going to take this much. We're going to turn it all down. And now.
Healer squish. Your jelly in a tin can in 10 seconds flat, squashed by some monster or other. Is there a problem?
Do you want every...
And now that truck is deeply, deeply in the background. We could even do more copy and pasting to get rid of these little lines that are here, which is the truck itself, the overtones. We could totally do that. I'll just do it for you really quickly. We'll do E, which is this selection. We'll go all the way down to here. We'll copy, and then I'm just going to zoom in and paste. Here's some more of it. Here, paste. And let's see where.
Is there a problem?
Yeah, her is still in there, so we want to leave the of the problem away. Leave it alone, but should be able to get that stuff in.
Monster or other. Is there a problem?
Do you want...
Much better. So, using Audition to cure a lot of ills. Let's look at another example. Now, in this example, this is just plain bad news.
So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great as location as you thought, because you're actually dealing with a lot of noise, not to mention possibly RF hits. Like, let's say your friend said, yeah, you can come out to the airport and shoot, but he's actually just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole...
Yeah, big bad problem. There's nothing nice about this. ADR, man. But for the purposes of education and me showing you what Audition can do, let's take a look. There's a bunch of things I want to show you. One, how do we fix this jet? Well, the whine of the jet, whine must be cultivated.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole...
There's a couple of elements of the jet. There is this stuff here, which is the whoosh of the jets.
Guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to
that stuff. And then there is the actual whine, the fundamental whine. So getting rid of this would require you to do another special noise print capture and then denoising that specifically, because it's a very different noise that you'll want to learn than anything over here with the idling trucks and the background noise. So we'll do that, or you can do that. But the primary thing is, how do you get rid of this jet here? Couple of ways. The easy way, that's lousy, and the not so easy way. The easy way is we just use this lasso, which is really, really hard to use. For this, we'll just select this a little bit like this, and then enhance our selection a little bit so we're not taking too much out. Just like in Photoshop. And then we're also going to try to help his dialogue so we don't lose any of it. Even though the jet will be in there, at least at this point, his voice will mask it. And we'll just get rid of it. Cute.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate.
And then from here, it gets a little bit more difficult. Let's go to the lasso tool. We're going to try to stay out of his voice. Maybe a little here that's not being masked very well. And we'll improve our selection by using the option tool to get rid of that stuff which we selected badly. And now there's his voice in here. You can see it. I've accidentally selected it. Great, we'll get rid of it. No sweat.
Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have... Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even...
At least the whine part is gone, right? And it's pretty well gone.
Janitor guy that opens the gate and...
The problem is there's all these overtones that are up there and you can't, there's no way to see them in this kind of a spectrogram. So this is the easy way. The next way is you got to go in, make your, like I said, a noise print, which, you know, we'll give it a whirl here, see what happens. This is about as good as we can do. These are going to be too short. although we might try them. But let's start with this for now. Effects, noise, process, capture. Let's get our selection in here.
Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole buildings. Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole buildings. Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole buildings. Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole buildings. Janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole buildings. Janitor guy that opens the janitor guy.
Just trying different settings. I think we're going to have to go into the 2K mode because it's just a little too reactive, a little too excited to mash on our dialogue. Yes! All right, let's see how this works.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So, just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So, just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole buildings.
I'm going to try a different spectral decay rate.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card.
All right, let's try that. Apply. Helps a little bit anyway.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So
we might try one more time, do a little noise capture. I want this and this with this and this.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building.
Helps it a little bit more.
Actually, just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building.
And unfortunately, it's killing a lot of his fundamentals here, which we can return. It's the fundamentals of his voice that were taken away. If we undo.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate.
Because the bulk of the jet is down in there. So if we go back, let's just select these using the lasso tool, which is where his voice is. Fundamental frequency. Like so. Somewhat difficult to see, but it definitely mirrors the overtones that are above it. And what's great about Audition is that you can boost as well as cut your selections, which is super awesome. Here's his fundamentals. So I can boost that, maybe 6 dB. See what it sounds like.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key.
Probably could even boost it more. Go back to the selection, maybe 10 dB. Let's see if that's too much.
Just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key card to the whole building. So
that's cool. So that helps that. I mean, it's not a good situation. And, you know, you could use some other tools to really even hone that much better. But it's a horrible situation. Now, for the rest of this, what do we have? Truck.
So sometimes when you have a good location.
Definitely a truck taking off.
Noise. Not to mention.
Right. A huge problem. So before we do our denoise, let's do it like what we did before. Let's get a capture print that we can copy. Now, if I use the time tool to select it, which I just did, and then if I use like the lasso tool and I paste, unfortunately, I get these dark door bits. So we're going to have to use the E key or the E key. The E, I believe, does select the marquee tool. I copy, And now I can go in here and do some things a little more surgically. I don't need all of this up here, so I'm just going to go like this and see what I get. That's definitely him. If I paste, I run out of space over here. So I'm going to go back to the lasso tool, and let's get inside his dialogue where all of that truck starts up. The rest of it, I think the denoise plugins will be able to solve. Paste.
A lot of noise.
Okay, that's great. We got rid of that. Now let's do the rest of this. We're only going to do a little bit because the selection isn't that long. Paste. Nice. And then it comes in again. We'll do the same thing here. Get rid of his low overtones. Just give me play. Cool. And then there's his voice. We'll just get rid of these overtone bits of the truck. We'll add that back in because like the selection before wasn't long enough. And this we'll paste.
Not to mention possibly our.
And the same thing again. We'll go to the lasso tool. We'll get in between the overtones of his voice. Ideally not selecting any of it. There, I hit it on accident here. Cool. We'll paste.
Not to mention possibly RF hits. Like, let's say you're
Okay, and now that we have the truck removed,
dealing with a lot of noise. Not to mention,
let's denoise. Now that we've got all that stuff out, now we will use the time selection tool. Select, restoration, capture, and from here we'll stretch her out to where we've been working over to here. And let's see what settings we need. I'm going to guess, well, 2K might just do it.
So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great as location as you thought because you're actually dealing with a lot of noise, not to mention possibly RF hits. Like, let's say you're...
Cool. Let's apply. Pretty good. Let's do another one. Just to see what happens. Here, capture noise print. Did I get it? Yes. We'll go out to here again.
So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great as location as you thought because... So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great as location as you thought because you're actually dealing with a lot of noise.
And we'll apply. Cool. Now let's see what we got.
So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great as location as you thought because you're actually dealing with a lot of noise, not to mention possibly RF hits. Like, let's say your friend
and
said,
then
yeah.
The last of this is the low frequency stuff, which we can just totally get rid of. We'll hit the E key because there is no, let's see, where's the bottom of his voice? Probably about here. We'll select that and shift. I'm just going to grab these arrows and come this away like that, and then turn it off.
So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great.
And that's as opposed to this.
Your locations and scout them before you go. But if you're stuck in this situation,
including the jet.
Actually just a janitor guy that opens the gate and doesn't even have a key.
As opposed to if we go undo everything. I guess I can't undo that because I burned the file already. Here's what we used to have.
So sometimes when you have a good location, it turns out that it's not as great as location as you thought because you're actually dealing.
That's a pretty awesome change. Then this.
So sometimes when you have a good location,
so even in Audition, it's got some great tools for getting rid of, really good tools for getting rid of average and easy to fix background noise and artifacts. And even some horrible situations like this, you can get really, really far on getting it handled. And there are other tools, obviously, we talk about throughout the rest of this education, but this is, the tools for getting this done. Now, there are other tools in here which I encourage you to take a look at, including the hiss reduction if you have a lot of high frequency noise. That doesn't usually happen in production. Usually it's kind of this mid-grade noise that we're hearing here. There's also a click and pop eliminator that is really good at getting rid of if you've got digital clicks and things like that. A lot of times you'll have clicks and pops and all kinds of weird things happening, even if it's just lip smacking in an ADR session. And as I've mentioned, or even a voiceover session, and as I mentioned before, the quickest way to solve that is literally have your actor or artist eat a slice of apple, and it literally cures lip smacking. But if you didn't know that, or if there's other things going on, you need to have a way to solve that instead of sitting here drawing. Ugh. So Audition has that capability and more. Here's a clip that has a little lip smacking. Check it out.
He unearthed a secret he had been missing for 12 years.
Right here.
He had
Lots of that. Audition has a couple of great tools to solve that. We're going to go to automatic click remover, a very, very simple to use tool. This is your threshold. The more you turn it to the right, the threshold, the less effect you're going to get, and the more to the left, the more draconian, and then complexity. How complex are your clicks harmonically? And you can just fool around with this. Leave it at 50% usually gives you a good setting to start anyway. Check it out. We're just going to line this up and loop this.
He had
Now listen to this all the way through. This is a threshold at its maximum.
He unearthed a secret he had been missing for...
It's processing thousands of potential clicks, which are actually just his voice, so it's way too much. And if we go the other way, nothing happens.
He unearthed a secret he had...
So let's select this and pull the threshold down until we get to a setting we like. You can hear it starting to do its work now. Let's turn the complexity down and see what happens. And then all the way up. Maybe somewhere in between. And then let's listen to it all the way through.
He unearthed a secret he had been missing.
And it's just, again, crunching on his voice, so let's pull it back.
He unearthed a secret. You
can hear it just crunching on his voice. So let's turn the complexity down.
He unearthed a secret he had...
And then bring the threshold down.
He unearthed a...
Nope, somewhere in here.
He unearthed a secret he had been missing.
So since we get to select and we don't have to process this whole thing, there's nothing wrong here. Why don't we just select this and leave the rest alone?
Grit.
Maybe a little more complexity. Now check out what happens. Here, you can see these bangs here in the high frequencies. We just go here. Apply. Much less.
A secret he had been missing for...
And that's pretty good.
A secret he had...
A little more natural, a little less offensive. One more tool I want to show you, and that's the kind of advanced version of that, which is the click and pop eliminator, which brings up the preview. It's a very complicated plugin, takes a lot of processing power, which is why you get this preview window, which means it has to render it before you can hear it. But the presets that it have in here, they're simple, but they work really well. Here's hiss and lots of clicks. And then you see it just processed it. And if you look, well, but I had it in there. Let's go back to where we were. I just want this. It does the processing on the fly for you. And just that preset, hiss and lots of clicks, got me to the same place that the automatic did. There's tons of things you can do in here, including, you probably can't see it, find more. More sensitivity means it's going to be more draconian. Find less means it's going to let more stuff pass. Unfortunately, in this example, that's a pretty mean click. Let's see about discrimination, if it will fix more of it. Nah, it's pretty loud, these clicks and pops, so it's going to say that's a problem, we need to get rid of it. And then once you apply, then it becomes the gold standard.
He unearthed a secret he had been missing for 12 years.
As opposed to what we had before.
He unearthed a secret He had been missing.
right? Nice and easy, seamless.
He unearthed a secret. He had been missing for 12 years.
And you can do this with large scale pops, but in this case, you're going to find yourself with a lot of these kinds of things. And it's just super easy to get in there with Audition and deal with it. So what if you don't have RX and you want to do a batch denoising in just Audition and you're happy with Audition's denoising? You can do that to a certain extent just within Audition. It's not exactly batch, but your denoise process can be. So what you do is you create what's called a macro or a favorite. So let's just do this. We're going to go into the spectral window by double clicking. And up here, you've got, this is in the favorites window, you've got record, play, trash. These are all the macros or the shortcuts or whatever you want to call them. This is how I go to and from RX. I've made that as a series of button clicks. It's a really powerful way to get around in Adobe Audition. Makes things super, super fast. It's actually a another really wonderful thing that Audition has. So if we want to do a batch, so to speak, we can go and do a bunch of the same denoising because we know we have the same noise profile for every file. That's great. We can do that in Audition. Once you've got settings that you like, here's what you do. You close, and we're going to create a macro. We hit this little record button looking thingy here. It looks like a little red circle. Bang, you get this cool dialogue that says, listen, here's what you're about to do. You're going to make a favorite and a macro. I hit OK. Now, everything that I do from here on out is being recorded. So ideally, we have the noise captured already, which we do, which is nice. We have the file open because if I go and do it right now, it will recapture it. Now it's going to actually store the noise print in this macro. It's already stored, which is pretty cool. I'm going to hit select all. Oh, well, I'm already selected all, but whatever. Effects here, noise reduction process. Here's all my settings nicely restored. Fantastic. I'm going to say apply. It does it. I hit stop. I say denoise donuts. And notice that now up here I have denoise donuts. Now if I undo, all I have to do to make this work is double click. Bam, schmam, done, next file, right? That's how easy that is. And this gets stored not just in this session, but now for the rest of your sessions. So, you might end up with a lot of these, which if you're going to do this, because this setting will not work on any other file that has a different noise print. If I go in and I say, oh, I'm going to use a different noise print, I'm going to hit Shift P, denoise, but I use this, it will not remember this noise print that I just did. It will only use the noise print that has been printed in that macro. So just be aware of that. But that's how you do this in Audition. Now look, I'll be honest with you. Adobe Audition doesn't do everything. And if you'd recorded your audio well, which I pray after watching the recording volume you do now, you don't need it to do everything well. It does the basic stuff super great, super awesome. You don't have to leave Adobe Audition to go anywhere. It's all built in. Really, really good digital audio workstation for cleaning up the basic stuff. Even some complicated stuff, as you saw, some really, really good results. If you've got crazy bad sounding audio, you're going to have to go out into some other program, and certainly in the other volumes and the other chapters of this volume, we talk about how to do that. But if you need a reference for how to use Adobe Audition to clean the stuff up, go back and review this chapter several times. It may not be a lot of fun, but the information's there. Also, we're going to be bringing up more and more examples on the blog for you. So, don't be silent and ask, listen, how do I do this? And I'll do my best to explain it. Until then, we'll see you in post.